Welcome. This is From Beyond The Paign, an Illinois basketball podcast. I'm Cody. You can follow me on Twitter at Cody_CHGO and on TikTok. Welcome. Hello, everyone. It's good to be back. It's been like a week since we last talked, but we're here. Illinois beats Minnesota 105-97 and basically a track meet. Basically, if you hate defense, you love this game. If you love defense, you're absolutely disgusted. You're ready to call the police and ask for a refund or something like that. That's basically what this game was. If you love offense, this was the game for you. This was a game that you show the kid. This is the game that you show your friend or your kid that's never watched a college basketball game ever. This is the game you show them if you're trying to get them interested in college basketball, because at the end of the day, offense sells, all right? Points sells, all right? That's just the fact of the matter. That's why everyone loves to bet the over, all right? That's just the fact of the matter. Doesn't mean that's what I like in general. I'm just saying that the casual person probably loved watching this game, all right? Illinois wins 105-97 again, and I saw Jeremy Werner tweet that this is the first time in like 30 years that Illinois has scored 100+ points in regulation. Obviously, I think they have, this in recent years, or hell, I even feel like they've done it this year, in which the game has gone to overtime though. So, yeah, again, the offense looked great tonight. Shannon, Coleman, and Domask each scored 20+ points. I'm kind of like, was this the best offensive game they put together this year? Is that fair to say? I felt like from the start, this team for 40 minutes in this game, I felt like they could not be stopped. They could not be stopped. On the offensive end, it was fun to watch, right? Like I feel like that's fair to say, right? I'm bringing up the stat sheet now. Illinois shot 61%. They shot 10 of 22 from three, which is 45%. They're 19 of 25 from the free throw line, which is fine, 76%. And they didn't turn the ball over. They turned the ball over 4 times all night. They owned points in the paint. They scored 50. Like they did everything right tonight outside of the defense, in which we'll talk about that, no doubt. But I feel like for the most part, when you score 105, it's hard to really complain about your team. Now, of course, that if you're thinking about the road ahead, sure, I feel like we can have some concerns, right? So again, we'll get to that. But we're celebrating right now, guys. All right, we're celebrating. I haven't got to even celebrate the Iowa win with you guys yet, right? What a bounce back the other day against Iowa after that disgusting game against Penn State. Let's see. MJ in the chat says, great win to overcome a great shooting night from Minnesota. I agree. I thought Minnesota, they played as well as they possibly could have on the road. Would have loved to see the shot quality expected outcome from this game. Same. Tyler, he says, the fact that they have 3 to 4 dudes who can give you 20 any night makes this team scary come the tournament. Hey, that's one way to look at it, right? That's absolutely one way to look at it. It's so crazy because the last time we talked, I was so angry. After the Penn State game. So angry. And then they bounced back against Iowa. I didn't get to watch the game. I was, if you're new here, I cover the Cubs as my full-time job, and this is just kind of like my side thing. During the game on Saturday, I was at a spring training game in Arizona, and I was following just the box score on my phone, but not watching it at all. Saw some highlights later, saw that that Brad basically benched everyone, brought a whole new line in, and things kind of flipped, and Illinois took over in the second half and went on to win by 10. Tonight, I don't think it was like that, but from that game in Iowa, everyone was talking about Nico Moretti and his production off the bench. Tonight, it was the Dain Dainja game. So 2 consecutive games, a guy off the bench has come off and provided huge minutes for them, right? This was this Dain's best game of the year, I'd say so. He's had some nice games considering the amount of minutes he's played in some games. I remember I think the Penn State game, he played a total of 2 minutes. So tonight he plays, well, ESPN app hasn't updated the amount of minutes yet that these guys played. I keep refreshing and it's not telling me. I don't know how many minutes he played. Hopefully that updates eventually. But he played a decent amount of minutes tonight, right? Especially in the second half. Finishes with 11 points and 6 rebounds. He even made his 3 free throws, guys. He even made all 3 free throws. Son of a bitch. Unbelievable. 4 or 5 from the field. He had 3 fouls, whatever. I thought he was kind of the difference in that second half, really. I mean, as far as, kind of helping, Terrence and Marcus and Coleman kind of provide that extra spark. They ended up being the difference, really, because Minnesota, again, they shot around 60% as well. Their entire starting 5 had double-digit points. They were all cooking. Christie, 23, Mitchell, 17, Hawkins, 10, Garcia, who cooked them down low all night, 29. And Paign even had 15 points as well. Their starting 5 did everything they possibly could. But they didn't get anything off the bench. They had 3 bench points. 3 bench points. So, Harmon had 6, Goody had 3 off the 1 3 that he hit, but Dainja, 11 points. I just feel like that was a difference. They won by 8 points. Yeah, I mean, he was huge. I thought Harmon also had I thought he played some good defense down the stretch in the second half too. I felt like Illinois kind of wore them down. Like their depth definitely showed towards the end of the game. And I know we've kind of sat here and questioned Illinois' depth at times because there's games where Brad maybe goes too deep off the bench and you're wondering, where's DGO? Where's Moretti? Where's Dain? You know what I mean? Like, and when I say those too deep, it's usually Harmon and Goody, right? Well, Moretti got some early minutes in the first half. Didn't see the floor in the second half, but again, he got on the floor tonight, right? Chi-Town Custom Cornhole Boards in the chat says that Dainja had 19 minutes. Thank you. I need to find a new platform to read the box score. I don't know why ESPN's not refreshing this, but thank you. Yeah, 19 minutes. That has to be a season high for him. It has to be. Maybe there was one game I remember Coleman was in foul trouble, and he played some huge minutes down the stretch. Yeah, and overall, I feel like he's played, at most 10 minutes all season. So to see him get 19 minutes tonight was huge. And Illinois is going to need this as the rest of these games in the regular season go along. As you get into the Big Ten tournament, March, all that stuff, they're going to need these types of games from guys off the bench. It can't just be Justin Harmon. It can't just be Luke Goody. You're going to need a Hansberry. You're going to need a DGL. You're going to need a Moretti. You're going to need a Dainja, one of them, to do something that no one's really expecting. And I felt like Dainja made his presence known tonight, which is huge. Absolutely huge. Spurgeon Cup fan, welcome, my friend. Absolutely, Dain was huge. He was huge. Just tuned in. Maybe you already touched on this. Are we going to talk about 14 of 20 from 3? 70%. I have not talked about that. Are we talking about Minnesota? Yeah. Minnesota shot 14 of 20 from 3, which is ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. Listen, like, I guess we can kind of get into it now, right? You want to talk about the defense a little bit? The only thing that I have to complain about the defense is that Paign, not only was it Paign, but and I'm not talking about the emotion. I'm talking about the player, Paign, Payne, and Garcia. Both of them cooked you all night. All night. And for most games, the other teams usually had just one guy. It was the one guy for Nebraska. It was Malik Hall for Michigan State, right? Tonight you had two guys cook you, and thankfully you were able to just outscore them, right? It's easier to get past this defense when you win, but is this defense good enough for them to, get past the Sweet 16 this year? It's like reality tells me no. Like when I think about reality, the reality of it, I don't think so. And I hope I'm wrong. I hope I'm wrong. Yeah, I mean, I feel like they can play really good defense in spurts. Again, in the second half of this game, I felt like there was that stretch there in that last 10 minutes. There was a stretch in there where I felt like Minnesota was just tired and they just couldn't keep up with Illinois anymore. And if that's how they want to do it, I'm just not sure that's going to work in March against a really good team. I will say that Minnesota is better than I think they're better than Iowa. I think they're better than Penn State for sure. That's for sure. So I want to give Minnesota a lot of credit for hanging around in this game. I mean, no one thought that they would even be above 500 team this year. They're 17-11 now. They've been, middle team, a mid team in the Big Ten this year. I would say that they're probably their fan base is probably pretty happy with what they've got this year, considering how bad they were last year. They're probably a team to watch out for next season, right? And depending on how they play the rest of the season, maybe they can get a tournament spot, but I really doubt it. They're gonna need some help, and they're gonna need to do well in the Big Ten tournament to maybe get an at-large bid. But I personally don't see it. But yeah, I mean, the defense is just a continuous thing with these bigs just cooking against Illinois. All of them. Christie, he had 23 himself. I felt like he didn't have as good of a second half as he did a first half. So they did better there. But I just felt like Garcia and Payne just did it all night. And sure, you can sit here and talk about, well, they're scoring a bunch of twos while Illinois is hitting a bunch of threes. Well, they went 14-20 tonight too from three. And it's just will Illinois see a team that gets hot like that from three again? Doubtful. But who knows, man? March gets crazy. So I don't know. I mean, Christie 6-9, Mitchell 4-4. Garcia, one of their forwards, he was one of them. He hit two of them. Hit 2 threes. Right? I'm willing to give up all these twos if they're not going to make threes, but he made a couple threes as well. So I'm going to continue to be concerned about this defense. I think I've come to realization that this defense just is what it is. We've seen enough games. I can't keep talking myself into the idea of their defense being better than what it is. I will say that it's surprising it's as bad as it is, considering how good it was in December before Terrence Shannon Jr. got suspended. Their defense in December was really good. I was at the Tennessee game. I thought they played as good a defense as they could against a team like that. They played really good defense against Mizzou. They played really good defense against Rutgers. I know those teams aren't good, but I just felt like that team, for the most part, even in their early non-conference schedule where they're playing all home games against mid-major schools, their offense wasn't very good at the beginning of the year, but their defense was there. That's what it always felt like to me. Maybe I'm wrong on that. November and December feel like a decade ago, but I just feel like the defense was so much better during those 2 months. And then now it's just reversed. It's almost a disappointment if Illinois doesn't score 80 plus points because we're so used to seeing them do it tonight or do it every game, right? I don't know if they're going to be able to play this style in March and win. That's what scares me. I hope I'm wrong though. I do hope I'm wrong. Let's see. Chi-Town Cornhole Custom Boards. Maybe they're spending too much energy scoring. 77% points per possession is insane. Maybe. I mean, I feel bad getting, like, I guess, criticizing it or having concerns, but it's like in the games that they've lost in conference, you can quite literally sit here and say that their defense is the reason they lost. Except against Penn State, because the way they lost against Penn State was just them choking the game away. But against Michigan State, their defense couldn't stop them in those final 7 minutes, right? There's various games. Go through their schedule real quick, right? I'm blanking on who they've played. Against Nebraska, they got away with that game somehow, some way. Somehow got away with it, right? 187-84. But if you remember that game, Illinois, a lot of us probably feel like Illinois should have lost that game. They tried to blow the game. They tried to give it away. Michigan, fine. That was probably one of their best defensive games in the conference season for sure. Only gave up 68. Michigan stinks, though. On the road at Maryland, you still gave up 80. You lost 85, or you won 85-80. Maryland also just not good, right? And then obviously you give up 90 points to Penn State. It was an embarrassing loss. But to me, the defense wasn't the reason they lost that game. They lost the game because they just didn't take care of the ball and do the little things that they needed to do in the final, 90 seconds of that one. It's still alarming that you gave up 90 points to Penn State, or 80 plus points to Penn State for sure. But in terms of win-loss, they just gave the game away, right? And then you give up 85 points to Iowa on Saturday. You score 95. Listen, again, I can't say much on it because I didn't watch it. From what people were saying on social media, from the highlights that I watched, it looked like they turned up the defensive intensity in the second half. The players got to, had to look at themselves in the mirror. Brad basically threatened them by benching them all, bringing the entire bench. And, they go on to win that game. Tonight, perhaps Minnesota just came out and just hit some tough shots. Again, 14 of 20 from 3. There were a handful of 3-pointers I thought that Minnesota took that I felt like Illinois contested, and they still made them, right? Sometimes you just have a night like that. I personally don't think they'll see another team that shoots 14 of 20 from 3, but crazier things have happened. So overall, though, as the season has gone along, the defense just hasn't gotten better. It hasn't even really been mid. I mean, they're giving up 80 plus points every single game. This is now the 1, 2, 3, 4, the 4th straight game they've given up 80 plus points. And that there's only one game this month that they haven't, and that was against Michigan, who stink. They are bad. So listen, I said at the end of January, if you go back to the last show I did in January, which probably would have been after they won 87-75 against Ohio State, I said that I will start criticizing Illinois if things don't get better at the end of February, because you want them to be playing their best basketball going into March. And at the time, I wasn't even really worried about the defense. I was worried about the offense because Terrence Shannon Jr. was struggling going into February. He did not play well. He had his first really decent game against Nebraska on the first game of February. The offense seems to have gotten there. Is the defense going to get anywhere close to where it was the first 2 months of the year? I just don't know. And at this point, I think it's irresponsible to believe that it will, personally, because I just feel like we've seen enough games to just believe that this is Illinois. What we've watched for the entire month of February probably is what this team is. Perhaps they can go a little bit higher offensively, maybe get some extra, production from guys that I mentioned earlier, like Dain, like Moretti on Saturday. Harmon and Goody have been pretty much consistent all season. They've had some bad games, undoubtedly, no doubt, right? But those 4 Plus, perhaps DGL is going to get some opportunities as well. You feel like one of those guys of that bunch I just said can help give you an extra boost too offensively. But like, I just don't know if this team is going to defend, man. And the thing is that like, I feel like Coleman Hawkins should be first team all defensive team in the Big Ten. And I feel the same thing about Terrence Shannon Jr., right? I'm not the only one who feels that. But Domask isn't exactly a great defender. Goody, we've seen, is not a great defender. I feel like he plays hard. He has the intensity, but he just isn't good at defense, right? Ty Rogers, I feel like he's probably, one of their best versatile defenders that they have outside of Coleman, because he does play, does technically play like a guard position, but has the size to be able to guard almost anyone on the court. Not like Coleman, but mostly not a 5, but 1 through 4, I think. And so I say all that, and I'm like, why isn't this team better on defense? It doesn't make sense to me. I'm just kind of sitting here trying to understand. So like, correct me if I'm wrong. Like, am I just like delusional? Am I really on the Delulu tonight? Like, I don't know. I don't know. Let's see. I'm looking at the chat right now. Joe, all I can add is it's far better winning without the defense than losing with great defense. It's normal. Big scoring games mean so defense. Yeah, and that's kind of where I'm at. Like, they won. They scored 105 points. Like, I can't be mad when you score 100 points or more. I feel like I need to apologize now, right? Like, I don't know. I don't know. What's up, Sonny? I just now saw your chat. He says, we just got done talking about it on our show. How much could this team use Sincere Harris in his defense right now? Season changer. Yeah, you're right. I mean, I when I learned that, like, we didn't even really know he was going to redshirt this year until like the first game of the year, when they basically said it, like, on television. At least that's when I learned. I don't have any inside sources telling me who's redshirting or not, but yeah, I mean, Sincere Harris was one of their best on-ball defenders last year. He would pick you up 94 feet, man. Yeah, they miss his defensive intensity for sure. I can't wait for him to come back next year. I hope he adds some offense to his game, because kid sure can defend. Him and you got him and DGL next year. That'll be a fun one, a fun duo to watch play some defense for sure. Let's see. Spurgeon Cub fan. Definitely not playing our best basketball going to March. Can we bring up the intensity at the Kohl Center? Yeah, I mean, I've been looking forward to this game against Wisconsin. And I know Wisconsin's just kind of fallen apart here over the last, honestly, in February, right? Like, they're not even in 3rd or 4th place now. Well, I guess they're tied for 4th in terms of Big Ten records, but like, they were ahead of Illinois, and they were in 1st place in this conference at the beginning of the month. But they've struggled so much in the month of February. They're 10-7 now in the Big Ten, and they have not played well. They lost to Nebraska at Nebraska. They lost at home to Purdue. They went to Michigan and lost to Michigan. They lost to Michigan, then lost to Rutgers right after that. They beat Ohio State at home. You thought maybe that was going to get their juju back. And then they went to Iowa and lost in overtime. They beat Maryland last Tuesday. And then in which perhaps you could have argued maybe that was the game that was going to get them right, going in the right direction. And then yesterday they lost at Indiana. So Wisconsin's not exactly playing good basketball right now. And now they host Illinois. Is going to be a huge game for them in terms of tournament seeding. and all this stuff. I still think they're going to get into the tournament, but it's crazy that they were once ranked in the top 10 in the AP poll, and they have 3 games left one against Illinois this Saturday. Then they host Rutgers for that revenge game, and then they go to Purdue to end the season. So, if I'm Wisconsin, they probably need to win at least 2 of these last 3 games, and I think they can rebound against Rutgers, but beating Illinois or Purdue is going to be really tough, and their best chances against Illinois at home. All right, they have to go to Purdue, and that's just going to be very, very hard, as we all know. So they're going to be motivated for this game, I believe, and we'll see. We'll see. I personally just feel like it's not like this Wisconsin team isn't like past Wisconsin teams where they just defend the living shit out of you and they get by doing that. They, AJ Storr, Hepburn, and that one white guy that I can't ever remember, but he reminds me so much of Brad Davison in the worst ways, probably just because they're white. Starts with a K. I can't say his name. Anyway, like they can score. They can score, but they haven't defended like most Wisconsin teams that I have watched in recent years. So, and that's just based off the eye test. I mean, I could bring up KenPom for you right now and bring up, we can talk about their defensive efficiency rating. So I feel like it could be a high scoring game against Illinois on Saturday. And I'm sure that game will be, I wouldn't be surprised if it's nationally televised. No, it's just on Big Ten Network. Okay. It's a 12 p.m. game. Let's see. Let's bring up KenPom right now. I mean, I'm interested now because if I'm just talking bullshit right now, I don't want to look stupid. So Illinois, they've now according to KenPom now, they're 13th in KenPom, 94. They're ranked 94th in defensive efficiency, man. While their offensive efficiency is 3. Like, I don't know. Anyway, Wisconsin, their adjusted defensive efficiency is 53rd, and their offensive efficiency is 19th. They have one of the slowest tempos, but somehow are still able to score the way they do. I'm not afraid of them defending. I think Greg Gard, I think he's overrated. I believed that for a while. The fact that Greg Gard has more Coach of the Years than Brad Underwood just blows my mind. And it's usually just because Wisconsin outperforms what everyone expects. You could have argued that he was going to win it again this year just because they weren't favored to do anything. And they've come back to earth, and they look like a team that I've kind of expected this year, right? So at this point, I feel good about Illinois going to Wisconsin. The only thing that scares me is the fact that it's on the road, and it's going to be a tough road environment. But it's not like Illinois hasn't gone to Wisconsin in the Underwood era and won at the Kohl Center. So it'll be a big game, and looking forward to it. Someone in the chat says, shockingly, a lot of bracketologists have Wisconsin as a 5 seed. That is a little shocking. They look more like based off their record in February, I feel like they should be like a 7 or an 8 seed at this point. I don't know. I don't follow the bracketologists like weekly or whatever. But yeah. So, I mean, that's my overall thoughts about going to Wisconsin on Saturday. But listen, I tweeted whenever Wisconsin and Purdue were playing. I think I tweeted during the game, just watching how Purdue just kind of owned that game the entire time. I think I tweeted something along the lines of like, I can't wait to go to the Kohl Center and beat the Badgers because they just don't scare me, man. Storr, okay, he's good, but I I don't know if they have enough offense to keep up with Illinois personally. So we'll see. I could be wrong. I expect it to be close just because Illinois can't win on the road consistently. They can't even go to Penn State and win on the road, right? It'll be a tough one, and I'm sure in some weird way, I'll be very annoyed by that game. So, Jeffrey in the chat, how you doing, man? Free Dain, we don't win without him tonight. You're right. You're absolutely right, man. I would agree with that. Bootzilla, we've won our last 3 at Wisconsin. We're making it 4. Manifest it, my friend. Manifest it. I agree. Underwood's owned Greg Garden. He's owned him. Absolutely owned him. I will say if they do go to Wisconsin and win there, I think we'd all feel a lot better about this team. You know, it would be the first game they play in March, right? Maybe we can start the narrative of things, you know, the defense playing better when March comes around. I don't know. Whatever I got to do to talk myself into believing. I guess what I'm saying when it comes to like just like the ceiling for this team, I think right now, like reality is setting in that, you know, they're a second weekend team and maybe that's it. Maybe they're not special like we all kind of thought they were back in December. Maybe like I think we all probably looked at Mizzou, thought they were better than what they really are. I don't even think they've won a conference game. Rutgers is one of the worst teams in the Big Ten, even though they beat some good teams. They went on a nice stretch, right? You know, you lost to Tennessee, that you hung around with them for 30 of the 40 minutes. So, you know, it wasn't a bad loss. And Tennessee is one of the best teams in the country. So, okay, that's one that might make you feel better. But you didn't win the game and you didn't beat Marquette. And I know Coleman Hawkins wasn't healthy, but again, you didn't win that game. We sit here going into March, and their best win for sure is probably still just beating Florida Atlantic. Maybe beating Northwestern by 30 at home. It like right? Like I it's a little frustrating because they had every chance to steal that game at Purdue. They should have beat Michigan State on the road. That would have been their best win of the season if they had pulled that off, right? You know, there's a handful of games where you feel like it would have been a good resume builder. So, like, I can't sit here and say that Illinois deserves a 3 seed. And after losing to Penn State, they probably don't. They'd probably have to win out. They'd have to beat Purdue at home to be considered for a 3 seed, I think. So yeah, man, I think they're probably a 4 or 5 seed. That, you know, maybe if they get put in the right bracket, maybe they can go further. But like the defense, again, 94th in adjusted defensive efficiency. Not great, Bob. It's not great. It's just not great. And I just don't know if it's going to get any better. If they can do it in spurts and continue to play the offense that they have, perhaps. But I feel like in March, games get slowed down. Possessions become so much more important, each and every one of them. I will say with the amount of experience that's on this team, perhaps that helps them. But I don't know, man. I don't know. Talk me out of it, guys. Spurgeon Cup fan. Win at Whiskey would be the beginning of the turnaround. Yeah, I agree. Bootzilla tournament is about 2 things most of the time: luck and getting hot at the right time. Hell, yeah, I agree. I absolutely agree. I mean, San Diego State last year is a good example. You know, you can look at some of those Cinderella teams from recent years as well. Sometimes crazy shit just happens, right? I think they have a good enough offense that can like carry them for sure. I just don't know about the defense. And it's like the way they play on defense, it's like they're just completely okay with giving up all these 2s inside, these easy buckets. These easy buckets that essentially have been leading to open 3-point shots in transition a lot of the times too. And so they got to find a way to slow that down just a little bit, in my opinion. I don't know. What do you guys think about that? Check it out, 7. Welcome, my friend. Sad to say, you're probably right. Lack of defense will cause a short circuit in the tournament. They look more like a spoiler than a team that will go deep in March. Yeah. Listen, like, I think we all want a second weekend team, right? Like, they haven't gone to the second weekend since I was a freshman in high school. Like, I'll take a second weekend team. I would absolutely take it. And, like, I know we all want to dream about the Final Four, but like, I'm not saying it would be a complete disappointment if they don't go. I'm not saying that it would be a disappointment if they don't go farther in the tournament. I think the expectation at this point should be Sweet 16, though. I think that's a fair expectation for this team. It will be tough because if they do get a 4 or 5 seed, that they potentially could play a 4 or a 5 seed, right? I think that's how the bracket would line up. So they would, if they're a 4, they'll play a 13. Got to get past that game, right? Those are always like upset alert type games. You get past that one, then you probably likely play that 5 seed, and then, like, it could be close, right? It's just not an easy road. That's why losing that game to Penn State is so brutal. And like, now they basically have to beat Purdue for me to think that they might have a chance to get a higher seed, right? I think this team can beat any team in college basketball on any given day. Full stop. I genuinely believe that they can. But they also can lose to any team on any given day too, because that team should not have lost to Penn State, should not have lost to Maryland back in January. And listen, they shouldn't have lost to Michigan State too. And I know Michigan State's a lot better than those other two, but it's just proof that they can literally lose to any team, that even teams that they are completely better than. And they're better than all 3 of those teams that I just said. Okay. Let's see what else. We are about 37 minutes. I'll read a few more comments. We've been weak inside all season because Brad hasn't used Dain enough, in my opinion. We look way better as a team with Dain clogging the paint. I mean, maybe him playing Dain extended minutes tonight was, a form of them trying to, do that. And I've asked for more Dain all season. He's had games where he's played like 1 or 2 minutes, and maybe that's the matchup, but that doesn't, he's not good in, right? He matched up well tonight because Minnesota's bigs were, good size that, I think he matched up well against. Garcia is more of a, he could go out and shoot, but Payne spent most of the night inside, so it's not like he was having to go out outside the paint most of the night on defense. So, yeah, I mean, I think with Dain, it still is a matchup thing, but he still should be playing more than just a few minutes a game, right? So I do hope that this game encourages Brad Underwood to play him a little bit more against Wisconsin, who has guys like Crowell and Tyler Wall. I think that he matches up well against them. So maybe we get a back-to-back game of 10-plus minutes from Dain Dainja, and he helps them win at the Kohl Center. I hope so. In some ways, Jeffrey, I think you're right. Spurgeon Cup fan. Other thing about March, Big Ten refs don't do the conference any favors. Teams aren't prepared for the real world. Yes, we can continue to use the refs as the reason no one in this conference does good in March. The one thing about March that I hate, I always have to defend all the Big Ten teams because we're always all flop. Chi-Town custom cornhole boards. Have to avoid the 4 or 5 seed, win the remaining regular season games, and lose the Big Ten tournament championship. Should lock them as a 3. So what you're saying is to avoid the 4 or 5 seed, got to win the remaining regular season games, and then at least go to the Big Ten tournament championship. and that would lock them as a 3. Well, if they win out, then they will probably get that double bye, right? So then you're playing basically 2 games in the Big Ten tournament. Yeah, I mean, maybe. Again, if they win out, that means that they beat Purdue and Wisconsin, and they go to Iowa and win there too on top. Yeah, those are the 3 games left. Wisconsin, Purdue, and Iowa. And then whatever you do in the Big Ten tournament, I would say, yeah. I feel like that can make a good argument for a 3 seed. If you beat Purdue, that's your best win of the year. If you go to Wisconsin and win there, despite the fact they've been struggling, it's still a good win. And then going to Iowa, who's like clawing and scratching for, that on the bubble last 4 in, that, and it's a rivalry game at the very end of the year. You can essentially, end their tournament hopes. Perhaps we'll see where things are by then, right? Yeah. I buy it. I'm not saying that it's out of hope, but that's a lot to ask, man. I don't know how. I don't feel good about playing Purdue right now. I'll just be honest with you guys. I don't feel good. Even though they lost by 5 to Purdue without Terrence Shannon Jr., this defense is just, it's scaring me, man. The only thing that makes me feel good about that game is that it's at home. Sweet 16 is expected. Has to be no excuses. That's on coaches now. I agree, Jeffrey. Let's see. Check it out. 7. Brett has been struggling to get any lineup to ignite a defense within the paint. Yeah, I agree. Yeah, maybe playing Dain more can help, right? Not against it. I'm willing to see it out. I am willing to see it out. You all are teaching me something tonight. You're cooking. Congrats to all of you for cooking. Credit to you. Check it out. 7. Still think the Illini will beat Purdue at home. Well, I sure as hell hope so I can yell at Greg Braggs Jr. about it and give him a ton of shit. If they beat Purdue at home, you all know that I'm all the way back in on this team. And I'm still in on this team. I think they can go to a second weekend, right? I'm not, and I haven't been trying to turn this like celebratory 105 to 97 win against Minnesota like negative. I've just had a lot of thoughts since the last show we did against Penn State, right? I've had a lot of thoughts. I got to get them out. And I'm still optimistic that they can do some damage in March. But these are the things right now that I'm talking about that worry me. So don't take it as me being negative or anything like that. But as we sit here right now, I'm just being honest. I don't feel good against Purdue. I hope Illinois goes to Wisconsin and wins by double digits. And that will be enough for me to talk myself into beating Purdue at home in that next game. So, all right, we're about 45 minutes in almost. So I'm going to get out of here. It's after 11. I'm freaking exhausted, man. I had a hell of a time in Arizona. It was a great time. If you've never been out to spring training, whether you guys are Cubs fans or not, if your team plays in Florida, it's probably just as another great experience there too. I highly recommend. But that said, I did notice when I logged on to YouTube today that I had almost 400 subscribers on YouTube. And I believe before I left, I had like 385. So I've gained a ton of subscribers since I left. And that was like 6 days ago. So, and when I say a ton, it's just like, like 12. But for me, that's good. And so I just want to say thank you to everyone who has subscribed since the last show. It really does mean a lot. I know I yelled a lot on the last show because I've never been more angry at Illinois than that loss to Penn State in the Brad Underwood era for sure. So I hope I resonated with a lot of y'all that subscribe, and that's why you did. But I am letting y'all know that I don't yell that much. So, but again, thank you for the new subscribers. I appreciate y'all. Remember, I'm trying to get to 500 before the end of the college basketball season. So if you're new or if you're a friend of the program, tell a friend and hit that subscribe button. I will be back Saturday for the noon game. I'm going to try and do the watch along. Haven't done the watch along in a few weeks. So if you want to be notified when it happens, hit that subscribe button, hit the bell notification, and I'll be here at noon on Saturday to watch Illinois, Wisconsin. Game is on Big Ten Network. So just to let y'all know in case you didn't know. So again, I appreciate all y'all's support. I will see you Saturday. Again, Illinois wins 105-97. The offense is as good of an offense that I've seen in probably a really long time. I don't even know what offense to compare this team to. But this defense needs work, man. Needs work. But a win's a win. And I'm in the show with that. A win is a win. You had to win this game to maintain your tournament seeding. And that's, at the end of the day, that's the most important thing from this game. I do think Minnesota is going to be a lot better next year. So I think if there's any other spin zone to this game, it is to just give Minnesota credit for hitting the shots that they did. Again, 14 of 20 from the 3-point line. So for me, I'm giving them a lot of credit, but at the same time, Illinois has got to get better on they got to figure out how to get better on defense somehow, some way. I don't know how they're going to do it, but they got to figure it out. But anyway, we'll talk more about it on Saturday, probably, because I'm sure their defense will be the reason they either win or lose. So I will see y'all then. Again, hit that like button on your way out, that subscribe button. I appreciate y'all. I will see you on Saturday. IL